Now let's get into our discussion of the day. Now the ECOWAS Council of the White. Oh, okay, fine. Let's get to our discussion. Now, former Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari and two of his alleged accomplices in an illicit drug trade will be spending more time in the detention facility of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. This is because a federal high court sitting in Abuja and presided over by Justice Zainab Abubakar has granted the prayers of the NDLEA to further detain the accused persons for 14 days pending investigation. The judge granted the anti-drug agency's request after NDLEA Director for Prosecution and Legal Services Joseph Sunday moved an ex parte application to that effect. Mr. Kyari was the commander of the Intelligence Response Team at the Force Headquarters Bureau of the Police before his suspension over links with convicted fraudster, hush puppy and new drug cartel. This is the crux of our discussion in the next couple of minutes, and joining me in the studio to discuss and make sense of all of this surrounding Abba Kyari alleged involvement in drug dealings is public affairs analyst Adeni Kunu. It is good to have you join me this morning.
Thank you very much,
Great.
Mike. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes.
Now, there has been a lot of controversies and reports from here and there regarding this Abba Kyari allegations here and there. And recall, a few years ago, he earned the tag Super Cup.
Yes, please.
He even won a lot of awards, recognition by the government, National Assembly, and all of that. Nigeria, in fact, the moment there's a crime anywhere, Nigerians will say, call Abba Kyari, and you'll find solution to it. Of course, he did a lot of cracking of a lot of cases that were pending here and there, and so on. And now this. Now, what do you make of all of these?
Well, I think that our hindsight should serve us better now. And some of the things that perhaps Abba Kyari did back then, if we were to beam another searchlight on it, we'd find out that it may not be so super as a cop after all. But for the benefit of this conversation, we look at what's going on now. Oftentimes, we don't have those people tell us that they have one ailment or the other that would make them not be able to serve their time. And immediately they find out that the tables have turned and they perhaps have found themselves detained or restrained or prevented from having one of their fundamental human rights, which is freedom of movement. You'd find out that they tell us they are not feeling okay. But I'm very happy that the NDLEA has been able to have their prayers granted, that they have to keep him for another fortnight. Of course, we should know the next move even tomorrow, which is the 24th. That's what Justice Eko told us after they initially met. But the lesson we need to bring out from this is the fact that everybody who occupies certain position within the rank and file of our security operatives must actually understand that there is triple responsibility. For instance, for those of us who have the privilege of coming on international TV as yours to talk, the responsibility on us is like 3 times more, because the things we say people should not do, then we do everything in our past not to fall into the same trap. And that is the case of Abba Kyari and many other persons. But I also would like us to have the proper optics here. The Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, should be answering certain questions.
Regarding what?
If we look at the developments that surrounded the fact that Abba Kyari left Abuja for Enugu, where this particular top-notch investigation exposed the illicit deal, don't forget that what he was involved in resulting in this is an official matter. And for somebody who happened to head the investigative team, that's a crack unit, as it were, you'd expect that the IG, who has assumed his position when he was suspended, should have a hand on this particular thing that has happened. That should be around July, August of last year. So I think why I said Usman Alkali Baba should actually be answering certain questions is, how does a man that we told has been suspended got involved in certain official things and you still do not know? He traveled, and not alone, he has accomplices. It is practically impossible for him not to have an idea of how the young man, because immediately they tell somebody you're on suspension, the satellite is on you, because they will be monitoring you considering the developments that actually happened. So it means that the Nigeria police force itself has not done its proper job in putting the beam on Abba Kyari since he's been on suspension, because don't forget, the international community, the United States of America, told us that this man is in cahoots with a money launderer. It therefore means that to corroborate the story that actually is contained in 64-page documents sent or released by the FBI, you'd have expected the police to begin to to put their light on him again, to understand what are his moves. Is there anything to confirm in the development? So having said that, we come back to the real story here, which is that Abba Kyari is in detention. Now let us also get it clear. It is his fundamental human rights to the federal government that they cannot keep him beyond his time. But I also need to remind him that even if unjustly, El Zakzaky was detained for years, even if the ECOWAS court had granted him bail. Do not also forget that the former National Security Advisor is also, as it were, in detention. Dasuki. So I want him to understand that he will be there until everything is cleared out. And at the same time, it's going to be difficult for him to give us another impression of himself, because there's video evidence to it. And it is unlike politicians going on air. For instance, when Gigi had gone on air to say Nigeria has so many doctors that we even export. When they quoted him, he said he was taken out of context, but the video evidence speaks otherwise. So for Abba Kyari, I think he doesn't even understand the gravity of what is involved in. And that is why days after he was held by the NDLEA, he quickly had to call his lawyer to actually do certain things. He's in a deep mess. And I tell you at the same time, the implication of this particular thing. Nigeria is a member of the international police, the Interpol, and many other international security agencies. If Abba Kyari doesn't understand, what he has done is to cause a huge dent on the reputation of Nigeria. Nigeria Police Force usually win award anytime we go for such international, or collaboration security operators. Don't forget the Kosovo War. Our police won different awards, and up till now we still do, because we are a force to reckon with. I think Nigeria has the second biggest army on the African continent. In terms of spending, I think it's the third or fourth, but recently it has gone to 11. But in terms of the numbers, we really are good at it. So if we talk about the police, Abba Kyari has caused a huge dent on the image and reputation of the Nigerian police. Because let me say this, if at that level of your being a superior officer in the police and things of this nature are found out, do not forget that if they dug deeper, they'll find out that he has lots of foot soldiers. Let me also switch gears to another police officer that headed the EFCC. Ibrahim Magu headed the EFCC in acting capacity. And do not forget that the Justice Ayo Salami report, which is already gathering dust, it's over a year since that report was submitted. Now, another thing that the federal government has to do in connection to that is when there are issues brought before the federal government and an independent panel has been set up, do not forget the EFCC has a substantive chairperson. You'd have expected also the federal government to make a move and say, so that will not appear to be condoning criminal acts or things that are improper, let us take it and finalize it. Now, Ibrahim Magu's issue, they've not said anything about it. That's another thing. So, plus Abba Kyari, plus the unattended Ibrahim Magu case, don't forget Ibrahim Magu also, he's a police officer. I don't want to use words because the last time I checked, he has not been given the sack. So, if we look at all of the situations surrounding these eminent personalities within the nation's police force, you'd expect government to understand that, bits and pieces of it could be affecting the reputation of the country.
Yeah, in that case, you're saying that the federal government may not be going in the right direction in the way that it is handling the issue.
I guess so. If you look at this issues, let me also go back to the FCC a bit. I seek your permission to do that. If we took a count of 1 to 10, many of the EFCC cases are falling like a pack of cards because they usually don't tidy up certain work that should be done. Of course, they would find out that there are certain things, but it appears as if those who do these corrupt practices are 2 steps smarter. Sarah Chekpe's case and 2 others have been on since 2018. This is 2022. It took them 4 years. So I think that it is very, very important for the federal government to understand that if we talk about proper investigation, excuse me, you do not investigate people who take billions or who commit such crimes that are associated with illicit drug dealing, I want to actually do that with $1 million or 2 million naira. You need the best of lawyers. You need the best of undercover investigations. And these things are very critical. And that is why when we talk about the EFCC, for instance, you need a lot of support given to it to do its work. Now we come to the police. If you look at the situation we have on ground, let me tell you, this situation is everywhere abroad, from England to US to Germany, and the international community is very concerned because perception index is one of the parameters with which even the United Nations measure certain things that happened. So if we have what is called perception index, then you have to understand what is the realistic assessment index apart from the perception index. So at the moment, we have to do a lot of review in the National Police. Who wants to be a police officer in the country? Is it a jobless man or somebody who indeed has interest in helping to better the nation's security operators? We really have to reinvent and review how we recruit people, because do not forget, if the man who should protect and be an officer of the law is corrupt, then the situation is worse off. So as it is with us, the instance we have right now is more than people take it. You know, Nigerians are quick to sleep over something. Abba Kyari is in detention, I will forget about it. Everything that doesn't go the way it should in Nigeria affects the average citizen. You are a global citizen. You travel the world. And you don't understand that there are places you get to, the way they treat us, when they see the green, they don't understand that every Nigerian is not like that. Years ago, I had a friendship with an American who was duped by a Nigerian. It took 2 years to be able to convince that person that those people who commit such crimes are less than 1% of the good and hardworking people of Nigeria. So if people like us work hard at helping the image of the country, then from the inside, especially those who have the responsibility to do so, must do much more. Because after all said and done, we are a good and hardworking people. And these things that seem to want to keep bringing down the image and reputation of the country is what the government has more work to do on. And if you also look at it, let us also talk about another thing that creates impression. Perception index results in realistic assessment index. We talk about 400 people that's associated with sponsoring terrorism in the country. The courts have resumed 8 months, 9 months over. And the Minister of Justice is refusing to take those people to court. So these are connected issues that will make the international community look at us and say, why is it that we're not doing this? So for Abba Kyari, it is one of many, and the country needs to revamp itself. All right.
Now, as it is,
yes, sir,
regarding Abba Kyari, all the allegations still remain allegations in the eyes of the law.
Yes, in the eyes of the law.
Yeah, in the eyes of the law,
in
where
court,
we stand.
Yeah, in the eyes of the law, yes.
Whether it is good or not good, but in the eyes of the law, he still remains an innocent man until proven guilty by a competent court of jurisdiction.
Yes, sir.
Now, in all of this that you talked about perception, in fact, on the media, on the front pages of newspapers, Nigerians have already made their conclusions regarding, oh, he's corrupt, he was involved in this, he was involved in that, but we know what issues can. Now, the what if factor is always there in anything. What if? What if what we're seeing is not the same thing that it is? Now, all of those questions are being asked at the point of analysis.
Yes, please.
Now, how will this impact recall? You mentioned the FBI, have a warrant for, calling him to answer some questions.
Yes, please.
How will this impact his, that issue of the case with the FBI? Because Nigerians are saying, of course, we need to finish whatever the issue here is first before, if at all, that he has to be handed over to the FBI.
I want to say this very clearly, and I think it will help Nigerians understand certain things that people who hold some positions do or not. A president of a country is supposed to be circumspect. A leader of men and resources is supposed to be very careful. That simply means at the juncture of entering into certain circles in society, immediately the responsibility or the onus is on you to take on more caution in dealing with people. A professor at a university must limit how he frolics with his students at odd hours beyond the campus, especially the female students. Not because he meant anything negative, but the point is the position he occupies demands of him or her to know that you cannot have some kind of excessive association with these people, particularly maybe when the exams are near. They see you in places of relaxation with many of your students. Perception
creates perception, exactly.
It comes again. Whilst Abba Kyari was in active service before his suspension, he was practically a friend to many rich and famous people. Perhaps we should understand that we need to do a retutelage for those that occupy certain positions. And that is why, if you are the governor of a state, if you're a minister, even if certain things hurt you to the point of saying it as it is, you either say it in different syntax, or you keep your mouth shut, or you don't comment about it. Abba Kyari has become too free. I've become too, how am I going to put it? He didn't understand the position he occupied. And he let down his guard, such that he started obnobbing with the people that obviously weren't regarded as criminals, but you understand that you hold a sensitive position. So I think that for Abba Kyari, it's a lesson for many of us. In the first place, I have not seen strong refutations. Do not forget that after the police service submission sat on this issue, I did not see a 10-page document, but the FBI gave us over 60-page documents of interaction, of communication, and certain $20,000 was involved in this particular thing that made them say, we're not talking about extraditing because a formal request must be made after all. But let this young man come and say, not at all of these things you have presented aren't true. So anybody who holds certain position, for instance, if you look at when Donald Trump was in power, there were lots of issues raised regarding, even before he came to power, regarding his terrorism affiliation. There were lots of allegations raised against him, which were thrown in the bin can. When Trump assumed office, there were lots of things raised against Hillary Clinton, even before he assumed office. And even when he came into office, there were lots of things about those who were kidnapping little children and actually taking them to places unknown. So I'm saying that when you hold certain positions, you should come to the realization that certain things are not free for all any longer. So I think that for Abba Kyari, he hobnobbed too much with many people who are ordinary citizens of the country. Do not also forget that some of the accusations leveled against him, those accusations were leveled against Hush Puppy. And the same Hush Puppy, sooner than later, I think it should be this month or early next month, will be sentenced. So I think that for every one of us, particularly those who are associated with the nation's security of investigative forces, it is important for them to know that the ball doesn't bounce in the same direction the way it bounces as for every other citizen. So I think that it's a huge lesson for everybody. So for Abba Kyari, the Hush Puppy case is going to impact this one, or this one will impact the Hush Puppy case, because if you're looking at it, everything is still within a year calendar. And one hand is money laundering, second one is illicit drug dealing. I tell you, there's a sledgehammer waiting to be slammed, and the verdict, I tell you, is not going to be right. Then there's something you said, the what if factor comes in. This is where the NDLEA has a responsibility to do a whole lot. And that's why the EFCC on a scale of 1 to 10 has lost well over 50% of her cases. They raised issues against Faroche, they lost. They raised issues against many people, they've lost. Not because some of those things weren't true, but in court you just don't do hearsay. Your evidence stands for you before the verdict is given. It therefore means that the NDLEA must do top-notch job, or else Abba Kyari, after all said and done, may also go free. And listen to this. When Abba Kyari goes free, with the level of what we find as allegation, it's going to be worse off. I'm just perceiving that. Because if at this level, with the video evidence, for instance, the man walks free, he's going to refortify himself, and really he could get vindictive, because it could feel that some people wanted him down, even if all of the things we've seen prove otherwise. I need to say this very clearly. Nigeria needs a real reinvention, especially with people who occupy certain positions. I think reorientation is important. And for people like us, we could help them do certain levels of crash courses on understanding that there is perception and realistic assessment also anytime they occupy such positions.
All right. There was, when we started talking, there
Yes,
was something you mentioned in passing. You talked about the issue of when people are accused of certain issues, and then it is at that point we get to know that either they were not feeling well, or they were sick, and so on. Now this case has also come up with the defense, the lawyer of Abba Kyari, mentioning the fact that he has some medical issues or that needs attention. This is not the first time, or second, or third, or fourth, or fifth, or
they've always had health issues.
Always had this. But the point there is, it is also possible that he could have these issues as well, because he has never really been on the searchlight. So nobody, because your medical issue is your medical issue, is your private issue. So it could really be that he was. But in ascertaining whether it is true or false, there are medical, medical centers, or test centers that can, on both sides, the courts on one hand, and then the defense, whatever, coming together to say, okay, this is a neutral, medical, either doctor or examiner, come and examine whether what he claimed he has is true. Why does it become controversial regarding the issue of somebody becoming ill? Okay, you have case to answer, and then you fall ill, and then it seems we don't have any solutions to that.
Let us identify the issues one before the other. There is an Abba Kyari in the eye of the storm. There's an Abba Kyari that is associated with a hush puppy. There is an Abba Kyari that perhaps holds a place of importance before this happened. That is one part of the conversation. The second part, Abba Kyari has health challenge. But it appears as if a man as active as he's always been doesn't appear to be somebody who has some kind of ailment that will prevent such active participation. Don't forget, he moved from Abuja to Enugu. You don't spend less than 10 hours moving from the north central to the southeast. If the roads are good, lucky you. So a man...
Well, he could also have gone by flight.
Well, wherever or however he moved, let me just say he went by road. I just want to put that. Don't forget, aviation fuel is high in price right now. So if you look, and don't forget, it's on suspension. And when you're on suspension, you get half pay. So perhaps being frugal would mean he went by road and drove at 60 kilometers per hour. So he got there maybe 11, 12 hours from Abuja to Enugu. But the picture is this. Abba Kyari never gave the impression that he has one ailment or the other before he got there. Then thirdly, don't forget that the issue of health. Let's say this. What is Nigeria's medical situation like? Does the NDLEA that has him in detention have enough? Does the court have enough proper health facilities to cater to that? Don't forget, these are legal issues. And do not also forget that he said, rights to the federal government that you have this. So these things are just reasons why there is so much about you have hypertension or diabetes or not.
All right, we'll keep looking at developments from all of these and even the fallouts of them as we get along. The most important thing is we need sanity in the entire system.
In the entire system,
all right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Adeni.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
On the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.